A profound truth emerges about how we approach all that we do. There need be no separation between work and play. Everything we engage with can be embraced as play, and not for one moment must we burden ourselves with the weight of seriousness. In this world, nearly everyone holds a quiet belief that something within them needs correction. They feel they should be more of this, less of that, smarter, kinder, more disciplined, more awakened, less anxious, less angry, less human. And so the endless chase begins, pursuing some future self, always waiting just around the corner, where everything finally falls into place. Here arises something almost scandalous to consider. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you at all. Your very being, this moment, this breath, this strange and sacred sense of existing is already perfect. Not perfect in the polished, well-behaved sense, but perfect the way a flame dances, a tree bends in the wind, a galaxy spins through space. We are not something apart from nature, observing it from a distance. We are nature itself, as much as the stars, the ocean, and the clouds. The patterns of our thoughts, our laughter, our sorrow, they are every bit as natural as ripples in water or the sound of thunder. Nothing needs to be done to earn our place here. We are already an extraordinary phenomenon of the universe. Just like that, and that is enough. One of the most extraordinary realizations, not mystical or religious, but simply factual, is this. We did not come into this world. We came out of it. Just as an apple tree, apples, the universe peoples. Each of us is one of those people. We are not strangers wandering through a foreign land. We are this place itself, its eyes, its thoughts, its wonderings about itself. Most of us were raised to feel separate, as though we are tiny egos trapped inside bags of skin, looking out at a world that seems over there, full of objects and others. But this is a trick of perception, an illusion created by language and labels. In reality, there is no line where we stop and the world begins. We are continuous with it, like a wave is continuous with the ocean. Look at a flame. Does it have a fixed boundary? It is a process, a happening, a flow. And so are we. We are not static things. We are verbs disguised as nouns, whirls of consciousness and memory shimmering like light on water. When we were born, the universe did not make a mistake. It was not trying to test us, fix us, or mold us into something better. It was expressing itself as us, and what peculiar, delightful, and intricate expressions we are. No one else has our exact rhythm, our exact voice, our particular pattern of laughter and silence. This is not random. This is design in the deepest, most spontaneous sense. Here is where the confusion sets in. From a young age, we were taught to override that naturalness, to conform, to behave, to achieve, to become someone. And in doing so, we began to believe the greatest lie of all, that we are somehow not enough, that we must become rather than simply be. But consider this. Have you ever seen a flower straining to bloom? Have you ever seen a tree hurrying to grow? They simply do it. They unfold because they are that unfolding. We too are unfolding. We too are nature playing itself out. We are not problems to be solved. We are not projects to be completed. We are events of the cosmos, as marvelous as the stars and just as inevitable. So look again, not with the eyes, but with the being. And perhaps, just perhaps, we will start to recognize the miracle we have always been. Of course, when someone says there is nothing wrong with you, the conditioned mind resists. The thought arises, what about the past? The failures, the guilt, the habits, the shame. And yet all of that, too, is part of the play, part of the process. From the very beginning, we are handed a story that being alive is a test, that we are here to prove something to God, to society, to parents, to ourselves. And so we become actors in a theater of self-improvement, constantly fixing, adjusting, striving, as if life were a ladder to climb rather than a mystery to dance. But what if that whole project was built on a false premise? The meaning of life is simply to be alive. It is plain, obvious, and simple. Yet everyone rushes around in great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. Consider this invitation. Close your eyes for a moment and feel the sensation of being. the aliveness that is present before any opinion or judgment arises. That is the true self. Not the inner critic, not the timeline, not the to-do list, just the raw, open presence of being here. What could possibly be wrong with that? Look at the clouds. They do not align themselves neatly into rows. They drift, they swirl, they form and dissolve. Is there anything wrong with them? No one scolds a wave for crashing too early or a tree for growing crooked. They are not judged by some cosmic scoreboard, but we human beings somehow believe we are the exception, that we alone must justify our existence, that we must earn the right to be. And this is the root of our suffering. The original illusion. The truth is, our imperfections are not mistakes. They are textures, details, echoes of our particular music. We do not need to become worthy of life. We are life. Life is expressing itself in human form. Just as fire flickers, just as water flows, even the attempt to become spiritual, even the desire to improve oneself is already part of the perfection. It is like the ocean trying to become wet, or a sunbeam trying to shine. It is unnecessary, and yet even that is allowed. So instead of chasing some polished idea of who we ought to be, what if we simply noticed who we already are, right now, without changing anything, without editing, without effort? There is nothing wrong with us. There never was. It is only the thought that says so. And we are not that thought. We are the silence behind it, the spaciousness that watches it come and go. And once this is seen, not as a belief but as a direct experience, something inside relaxes. In that space, in that letting go, we begin to remember something ancient and true. We are nature, wild, vast, unfinished, and beautiful. We are just like that. When the wisdom reveals that we do not need to do anything, this does not mean we should sit still like lumps of stone. No, this means something far subtler. We do not need to strain to be what we already are. We do not push the river. We float with it, because the river is doing the flowing, not us. And in the same way, life is living itself through us. Birds do not sing to impress. They sing because it is their nature. We do not have to force meaning or chase purpose. It emerges like a breeze, like a laugh, like a melody, when we stop trying to manufacture it. This is effortless action, as the Taoists say. Wu Wei, not laziness, not apathy, but the art of moving with the current rather than against it. And when we discover that rhythm, the one where we are no longer doing life but being it, then the dance begins. Here emerges a peculiar little paradox. Most of us spend our lives trying to be ourselves, but the moment we try, the moment we reach for authenticity like a product on a shelf, we have already lost it. Because the self is not something we can grasp. It is something we relax into. Trying to be spontaneous is like trying to fall asleep on purpose. The very effort prevents the happening. We are so busy asking, am I doing it right? Am I healed yet? Am I authentic now? That we miss the very thing we are looking for. It is like chasing our own shadow around the room. Of course, there is nothing wrong with the chase. It is adorable in a way. The ego trying to polish itself like a stone, endlessly sanding, refining, spiritualizing. But eventually, we begin to laugh, because we realize the one doing all the fixing is the very thing that does not need to exist. It is all a bit of cosmic theater. We do not need to become ourselves. We already are. Right here in our quirks, our flaws, our silence, our breath. Authenticity is not something we try to achieve. It is what remains when we stop pretending. And that is freedom. Going a little deeper, we must look at something very peculiar. We did not invent the image we have of ourselves. It was handed to us, constructed layer by layer, built out of glances, comments, and expectations, like a mirror made of other people's thoughts. From the moment we were old enough to speak, we were told who we are, what is acceptable, what is not, what earns love and what does not. And so, without even realizing it, we began to shape ourselves according to the reflections around us. We became collections of borrowed ideas, patchwork personalities stitched together from parents, teachers, and religions. And then one day, maybe in our 20s, maybe much later, we start to feel tired. Not physically, but existentially. as though we have been wearing someone else's clothes for so long that we forgot how our own skin feels. That is the moment, that little flicker of rebellion, that sense that the person we have been performing is not the one who is actually alive in there. The most dangerous thing we can do is believe our own role, because the role is fine. It is useful even, but it is not us. We are what is playing the role. We are the actor, not the mask. Society teaches us to mistake the costume for the being. We become the good girl, the strong man, the productive adult, and forget that we are also a storm, a poem, a mystery. And so, when people say be yourself, what they often mean is be the version of yourself we like the most. But that is not freedom. That is still a performance. The real task is to see through the performance, not to destroy it. We do not need to rebel with clenched fists, but to recognize that it is just a costume. And when we see it as such, we can finally take it off or wear it playfully like a child in a mask. Because the one underneath, that is the real us. The one who does not need to be impressive, who is not worried about being liked, who does not have to be good or enlightened or enough. That one, the silent, observing, breathing aliveness behind all the stories, was never broken and never needed fixing. It only needed remembering. So then what is left? If we are not the voice in our head, not the roles we have been assigned, not the identity we have spent years defending, what remains? Silence. The space in which all thoughts arise and fade. The stillness behind the movement. Awakening is not a matter of adding anything. It is not about gathering spiritual merit badges or perfecting the personality. It is a matter of subtraction, of unlearning, like a muddy pond clearing when the stirring stops. We do not need to do anything for clarity. We simply allow the mud to settle. But most people are afraid of that silence. Because in silence, the ego cannot speak. And without noise, it begins to disappear. Yet that is where our real nature is hiding. Not in the struggle, but in the surrender. The self, the true self, is not discovered by thinking more, but by thinking less. By looking inward, not with judgment, but with wonder. And in that gentle noticing, we begin to feel it, a quiet hum behind the chest, a spaciousness where the need to become finally dissolves. And what is left is being pure, present, unconditional, just like that. So then how does one live like this, without all the grasping, the fixing, the polishing? Like the sky. The sky does not hold on to the clouds. It does not chase the sun or argue with the storm. It just lets things pass through. And we, if we stop clinging so tightly to our story, can live like that too. No need to constantly edit ourselves. No need to be better all the time. Because once we realize we are the sky and not the passing weather, everything becomes lighter. We begin to trust life more, not because we figured it all out, but because we no longer believe we need to. There is a rhythm to things, a timing that does not belong to the clock, but to the heart. And when we stop pushing so hard, we can actually hear it. And that is the irony. When we stop trying so hard to live the right way, we begin living the real way. More wonder, less control, more play, less proving. Because trees do not strive to be trees, and waves do not try to crash correctly. They just are, and so are we. So let ourselves be lived. Let life happen through us without interference, because we are just like that, and that is more than enough. And so we return to the beginning, to that strange and wonderful statement. There is nothing wrong with us at all. Not as a comforting sentiment, but as a radical, liberating truth. We are not something broken that needs to be repaired. We are not some spiritual project waiting to be completed. We are, in this very moment, an unfolding mystery, a ripple in eternity, a brief song in the great silence. And if we can see ourselves in the right way, not through the eyes of judgment or self-doubt, but as a phenomenon of nature like fire or clouds or galaxies, then we will see we were never separate. We were never too much. We were never not enough. We were just like that. Not perfect, but whole. Not flawless, but complete. And all that is left is to remember, to drop the pretense, to breathe in, and simply be. Because once we stop chasing after some future version of ourselves, we realize we have been home all along. Not in the world's idea of success, not in someone else's approval, but in our own quiet presence, in the simple sacred fact that we exist. And that is quite enough.